The space station floated in silence above a dead planet. Its walls were rusted. Its lights flickered. Inside, the market buzzed like a dying machine. Vendors yelled. Neon signs flashed. The air smelled like oil, blood, and something worse. People moved like ghosts. Some wore long coats. Others wore armor. Most kept weapons close. The market was not for food or tools. This place sold darker things. Cages lined the walls. Inside them were creatures from distant stars. Some were dangerous. Others were helpless. In the center of the hall, a metal platform stood tall. Above it, a speaker crackled. A voice echoed through the station. Lot 47. Exotic livestock. Rare gene-mixed hybrids. Auction begins in 3 minutes. Jackson Cade stood still. His boots were heavy. His coat smelled like fire and rain. His eyes scanned the platform. He wasn't there to buy. Not really. He had no plans, no home, no future. He was a soldier once, a good one, until the war ended and no one needed him anymore. Now he drifted from station to station, job to job, trying to forget, but something about this place felt wrong. He walked closer. To the platform, a crowd had gathered. Most were rich traders or crime lords. A few were just curious. Jackson pushed through the crowd. No one stopped him. He didn't look like someone they wanted to mess with. A guard pulled a lever. Metal shutters opened. Cameras turned on. Lights flickered. And there they were, 7 cages. Inside each one sat a girl, young, pale, dirty. But they were not human. Their ears were pointed, like cats. Soft fur covered parts of their skin. Their tails curled around their legs. Their eyes were wide and glowing. Alien hybrids. Rare. Created in illegal labs for beauty or pain. No one cared which. Some in the crowd whistled. Others laughed. Fresh meat, someone said. Look at that one. She'll make a fine coat. Jackson's jaw tightened. The girls didn't move. They knew better. Movement brought pain. The last cage held a girl who was smaller than the rest. Her hands shook. Her knees were scraped. Her lips were cracked, but her eyes were still clear. She looked around, not begging, not crying, just waiting. The auctioneer stepped onto the platform. A tall alien with metal arms and sharp teeth. Lot 47, he shouted. Genetically enhanced for softness, silence, and taste. 7 pieces, all alive, all clean. Certified by 2 local labs. Opening bid, 3,000 credits. The crowd roared. Jackson checked his credit chip. He had just over 3,000. Enough for one more trip to another planet. Maybe some food. Maybe a ticket to nowhere. He stared at the girls. Then he looked back at the crowd. No one saw them as people. Only product. Only profit. The auction began. 3,000, someone shouted. 3,500, 4,000. Bids climbed fast. Jackson didn't speak. He wasn't sure why he was still standing there. Until the auctioneer raised a whip. Move them. Show them off. A guard hit a button. The cages jolted. Electricity sparked. The girls cried out. One collapsed. The small one in the last cage looked straight at Jackson. Her eyes locked onto his dot. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She whispered, "Please." His heart stopped. He had seen fear before. He had seen pain. But this was something else. She wasn't asking to be saved. She was asking not to be forgotten. His hand rose. 5,000 credits, he said. The crowd turned, laughter, confusion. Who said that? The auctioneer growled. Jackson stepped forward. 5,000, he repeated. The auctioneer squinted. You look like you can't even pay for fuel. Jackson held out his credit chip. The scanner beeped. The number flashed. Just enough. Sold. The auctioneer shouted. The whip lowered. Jackson climbed the steps. The guards backed off. No one dared stop him now. He knelt in front of the cage. The girl stared at him. Unsure, he pressed a button. The door clicked open. She didn't move. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're free now." She stepped out slowly. Her legs were shaking. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her. The crowd was still staring. Some looked angry, others amused. He ignored them all. He turned to leave. The girl beside him. And from behind, the auctioneer's voice echoed one last time you bought meat, human. Don't blame us when it starts to rot. Jackson didn't stop walking, but his eyes burned with fire. Because in a world that forgot how to care, he just remembered what it meant to feel. Jackson Cade walked through the station's lower decks with the alien girl by his side. The old coat he gave her dragged behind her feet, but she clutched it tightly. The market's noise faded behind them. The smell of fire and blood still hung in the air, but Jackson no longer cared. He had spent everything, every last credit, the last bit of his survival, traded for a soul no one else wanted. Guards stared at him as he passed. Traders whispered. Some laughed behind his back. Stupid, human, throwing credits on meat. Should have just eaten her himself. Jackson kept walking. The girl stayed silent. She moved like she was expecting to be hit at any moment. Her ears twitched. Her eyes scanned every shadow. Jackson reached his ship. The Ravenfall. It wasn't pretty old engine. Rust on the wings. Scratched hull from 100 fights. But it still flew. He opened the ramp and motioned. For her to follow, she hesitated. Her tail curled tightly. Her claws flexed. Jackson didn't rush her. "This is my ship," he said calmly. "You're safe here." Slowly, she stepped inside. The cargo bay was cold and dark. A few lights flickered on. She stared at the walls like she expected to be chained again. Instead, Jackson handed her a water bottle. She grabbed it fast and drank too quickly, coughing. He waited until she was done. "My name is Jackson Cade," he said. She looked up, wiping her mouth. "NYLA." Double quotes. Her voice was quiet, tired, but it had strength. "Are the others safe?" she asked. Jackson shook his head. "I didn't have enough." Nyla lowered her eyes. He felt a sharp pain in his chest. Regret, anger, guilt. He opened a storage locker and pulled out a blanket. "You can sleep here tonight," he said. "I'll try to find someplace safer tomorrow." She didn't answer. Instead, she sat down on the floor, wrapping the blanket around herself like armor. Jackson turned to leave. But before he reached the door, she spoke again. "Why did you save me?" He paused. The question hung in the air. "I don't know," he admitted. "But when I saw you, I couldn't walk away." She studied his face like she was trying to find a lie, but there wasn't one. Jackson left her alone and moved to the cockpit. He stared out into the void through the glass. The stars were cold, distant. He had no credits, no food, no plan, but he had her, a girl from a cage who should have been meat. Now sitting in his ship, wrapped in his coat, he rested his head back and closed his eyes. Hours passed. Nyla couldn't sleep. The ship creaked. The air felt too clean, too quiet. She had never seen kindness before. Not real kindness. Why would a human give up everything for her? They always took, hurt, bought, sold. She stood and walked through the hallway. Jackson was asleep in the pilot's seat, arms crossed, head tilted. He looked tired, worn down, but peaceful. She found herself watching him. She didn't understand. Didn't trust him, but a small part of her wanted to believe him, wanted to believe she was more than what the cage made her. Suddenly, a sharp beeping echoed from the cockpit panel. Jackson's eyes snapped open. He checked the screen. His heart sank. Bounty alert. A live transmission. Subject, Jackson Cade. Charge, theft of certified genetic property. Reward, 10,000 credits. He slammed his fist into the panel. Someone had placed a bounty on him. They wanted her back. He turned to find Nyla standing there. "You're marked," she whispered. Jackson nodded. "Yeah, and I'm guessing they tagged you with a tracker." Nyla looked down, shocked. "I didn't know." "It's not your fault," he said. "We'll remove it." He moved quickly to the med station. She followed, unsure but willing. Inside the cramped room, he scanned her. A red dot glowed behind her right shoulder, tiny, invisible to the eye. Jackson grabbed a sterilizer, a tool, and a cloth. "This is going to hurt a little." "I'm used to pain," she said quietly. He worked fast. The tool buzzed. Nyla bit her lip. No scream, no cry. He pulled the tracker out and crushed it under his boot. "There," he said. "No one follows us now." She looked at him. Her eyes were glassy. Wet? No one had ever removed a tracker for her. They had only ever put them in. She reached out and touched his arm. "Thank you." Jackson nodded. "You're not property, Nyla. Not anymore." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then she spoke. "There are more of us, on other stations." He met her eyes. "You want to save them?" She nodded. Jackson looked out the window. The stars were calling again. He had no credits, no weapons, no backup. Just a ship, a wounded heart, and a girl who believed in him. He smiled. "Then we'll need a plan." The Ravenfall drifted through deep space, far from the station, far from the auction, but not far from the memories. Nyla sat in the medbay, watching the blood on Jackson's gloves. It wasn't his blood, it was hers, from the tracker he removed just hours ago. She still felt the sting in her shoulder, but something else hurt more. The truth. They were hunted now, both of them, because he tried to save her. She sat on the floor, with her knees pulled to her chest. She didn't sleep, didn't eat, didn't speak. Jackson stepped into the room and sat across from her. He didn't say anything at first, just waited. Finally, Nyla broke the silence. "You should have let us die." Her voice was sharp, empty. Jackson's jaw tightened, but he kept calm. "Why do you think that?" She didn't look at him. "Because now they'll come for you too. You'll suffer. You'll lose your ship, your life, because of me." Jackson leaned back. "I already lost everything, Nyla, the moment I left the war." She frowned. Slowly, her eyes met his. "You were a soldier." He nodded. "Earth Coalition. 6 years. Watched good people die for bad orders. Watched planets burn for profit. I survived, but I stopped living." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small photo, worn, torn at the edges. It showed a woman and a young boy, smiling. "My wife, my son." Nyla stared. They were on a transport ship. It was hit by raiders, sold, or worse. No one cared. No one searched. Just another lost file in the system. He put the photo away. "That's when I walked away. Started drifting. Started forgetting." He looked at her again. "Until I saw you in that cage." Silence fell between them. Then Nyla whispered, "What if I can't be saved?" Jackson leaned forward. "You already are." Nyla's eyes began to water. She looked down, ashamed. "No one ever treated us like people," she said. "From the day we were born, we were trained, punished, told to obey. We weren't allowed to speak unless spoken to. We were bred to be meat." Jackson reached out slowly. He placed his hand over hers. "You are not meat. You are not a mistake. You are someone. That's all that matters now." Her breath shook. No one had touched her without hurting her, until now. She let his hand stay. Just for a moment, then the ship's alarms blared. Jackson stood fast. He ran to the cockpit. Nyla followed close behind. The radar showed movement. 3 ships, closing in fast, all unmarked. No ID codes, no broadcasts. Pirates, or worse. Jackson pulled the controls. The Ravenfall jolted left. He dove between asteroid fields, trying to shake them. "They're fast," he muttered. Too fast. Nyla stared at the screen. They're not here to kill you. They want me back. Jackson clenched his jaw. Then they picked the wrong ship. He opened the weapons panel. Only 2 cannons had power. The others were offline. Low fuel, low shields. They were barely holding together. Nyla touched the controls. I can help, she said. I know their ships. I know how they move. Jackson looked at her. You sure? She nodded. He gave her the co-pilot seat. Together, they flew into the storm. One enemy ship locked on, fired a missile. Nyla shouted, now, left. Jackson pulled hard. The Ravenfall spun. The missile clipped aside. Warning lights lit up. Sparks flew from the control board. But they were still flying. Another ship moved in. Nyla tapped buttons quickly, rerouted power to the rear cannon. Fire, she shouted. Jackson slammed the trigger. A blast tore through the second ship. It exploded into smoke and metal. The third ship turned back, cowered, or maybe it realized they were no easy target. The chase ended. For now, the Ravenfall limped into open space again. Jackson powered down the engines. Nyla slumped back into her seat. They were both shaking, but alive. You did good, Jackson said. Nyla smiled. Just a little. I wasn't raised to fly, but I watched. I remembered. He nodded. You remembered freedom. She looked out the window at the stars. Do you think the others are still alive? My sisters? From the cages. Jackson followed her gaze. I think they're waiting. Just like you were. For someone to care. Nyla reached into her coat and pulled something out. A small metal charm. Shaped like a star. She pressed it into Jackson's hand. We were never allowed to keep anything, she said. But I hid this for years. It belonged to my real mother, before they took me. He stared at the charm. I can't take this. You already did, she said softly. You took my fear away. Jackson closed his hand around it. Nyla stood. I'm ready now. Whatever you need to do, I'll help you. He stood beside her. Then we start by finding the next station, and we free the next cage. Together, they turned back to the control board, and for the first time in years, Jackson Cade felt something real, purpose. The Ravenfall drifted through the cold, black silence of space. Inside the ship, wires sparked, panels flickered, the hull groaned. Jackson worked fast, hands covered in grease. He patched what he could, knowing it wouldn't hold for long. Nyla stood near the engine room, watching him. You're bleeding, she said. Jackson looked down. A long cut ran across his arm. He hadn't even noticed. Not the worst thing today, he said with a tired smile. Nyla walked over and gently took his hand. You saved me again. That makes twice now. Jackson shook his head. You saved yourself. And me. She started wrapping his arm with a clean cloth. We should hide, she whispered. They'll come again. He looked at her. Yes, and next time, they won't make the mistake of sending just 3. She nodded. So what now? He stood and walked toward the cockpit. Nyla followed. He tapped into the long-range scanner. The data showed multiple signals. Some were close. Too close. They've sent a full sweep. Bounty hunters, pirates, slavers, all scanning for the ship. He leaned back in the pilot's seat, thinking fast. There's only one place they won't follow us. Nyla leaned closer to the screen. Galactic Union space. Her ears twitched. They'll kill us on sight. Union patrols don't ask questions. They shoot. First. I know, Jackson said. But they hate slavers more than they hate smugglers. If we can find a neutral zone, we can buy time, maybe even safety. Nyla hesitated. Is it worth the risk? Jackson turned to her. They'll come for you either way. At least in Union space, they'll have to pretend to follow laws. Nyla looked out the window at the stars. Let's run then, Jackson smiled. Hold on tight. He powered up the jump drive. The engines roared. The ship VIB RATED. And then the stars bent and twisted, pulling them into hyperspace. Inside the jump corridor, space looked like stretched glass. Colors blurred. Time felt strange. Nyla stared at the swirling lights. "Is this what freedom feels like?" she asked. Jackson looked over at her. "Feels more like barely escaping death." She smiled softly. "Still better than the cage." Suddenly, alarms blared. The jump lane collapsed. A warning flashed across the screen. "Navigation error. Unauthorized entry detected. Dropping from hyperspace." Jackson cursed. "Something pulled us out." The ship dropped hard, jolting both of them in their seats. When they looked out the window, everything had changed. Ahead of them was a fleet. Gray ships, with gold markings, sleek, armed, galactic, Union patrol. Nyla's eyes widened. "That's not a neutral zone. That's a military checkpoint." Jackson pulled back the throttle. "It's too late. They've seen us." A voice crackled through the comms. "This is Captain Rain of the Union Star Cruiser. Tyros, identify yourself and prepare to be boarded." Jackson didn't respond. He shut off the comm. Nyla turned to him, tense. "What do we do?" He took a deep breath. "We bluff." 10 minutes later, the Ravenfall was surrounded. Armed drones hovered around the hull. A boarding shuttle docked. Jackson stood at the entrance, blocking the path. 2 armored soldiers entered, weapons drawn. Behind them walked a tall woman in silver uniform, cold eyes, short black hair. "You're Cade?" she asked. "That's right. This ship is marked with a bounty alert. Are you aware you're carrying stolen bioassets?" Jackson didn't flinch. "She's not stolen. She's a person." The captain raised an eyebrow. "You paid for her." "No, I saved her." The captain motioned to the guards. "Stand down." They lowered their weapons slightly. Then she turned to Nyla. "Name Nyla," she said quietly. The captain scanned her with a small device. "This tracker's been removed." Jackson stepped forward. She had no idea it was inside her. She didn't ask to be made or sold. The captain narrowed her eyes. "You know, most smugglers lie better than this." "I'm not a smuggler." "Then what are you?" Jackson looked her dead in the eye. "A man who finally did something right." The captain didn't reply. She walked past him, inspecting the ship. "It's falling apart. Weapons are half dead. Life support's unstable. You're running from something big." "Yeah," Jackson said. "I am." She paused. "Why should I believe you?" Nyla stepped forward. "Because he didn't have to save me. He chose to. He gave up everything he had, just to keep me alive." The captain looked between them. Then she spoke quietly into her wrist. "Command, this is Captain Rain. Ship is unarmed. Cargo holds 1 hybrid refugee and a human pilot. No threat." A pause. Then she turned back to Jackson. "I'm sending you coordinates. There's a mining station near the border. Abandoned. Low surveillance. Stay there. Keep quiet." Jackson blinked. "You're letting us go. For now. Why?" The captain's expression softened. "Just slightly. Because there's not enough people like you left." She walked out. The guards followed. The shuttle undocked. And just like that, they were alone again. Later, Jackson sat in the cockpit, watching the stars. Nyla brought him a warm drink. Something made from recycled water and nutrient packs. It wasn't good, but it was enough. She sat beside him. "You could have told them I forced you. Lied. You could have saved yourself." Jackson shook his head. "I stopped lying the day I met you." She looked at him, eyes shining. For the first time, there was no fear in them, only trust. "You keep risking your life," she whispered. "And I'll keep doing it," he said, "until you're free, all of you." She leaned closer, and this time, when her hand found his, he didn't pull away. The mining station looked like a graveyard. Dead lights, hollow towers. walls crumbling under the weight of time. The Ravenfall landed on the upper platform with a heavy groan. Dust rose, metal groaned under the ship's weight. Inside, Jackson powered down the systems. The engines hissed, silence returned. He leaned back in his seat and exhaled slowly. They had made it. For now, Nyla stood at the window, staring out at the empty station. "Is it safe?" she asked. "Safe enough to sleep," Jackson replied. "At least for a night." He stood and stretched. His arm still ached from the wound, but he ignored it. "You should get some rest." She looked at him, hesitant. "Will you?" Jackson smiled faintly. "I'll stay up, just in case." The next few hours passed. Quietly, Jackson repaired part of the hull. Nyla tried to organize supplies. They didn't talk much, but the silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. She watched him work. Every time he lifted a tool or wiped sweat from his brow, her heart beat faster. No one had ever fought for her before. No one had ever listened when she spoke now. She wasn't just surviving. She was living. When Jackson sat down to eat a ration bar, Nyla joined him. She sat close, closer than usual. "You never told me what Earth is like," she said. Jackson took a slow breath. "Blue skies, green forests, oceans that go forever." Nyla closed her eyes. "Sounds like a dream." It was. "Before we ruined it." She turned to him. "You still believe in it?" He nodded. "I believe we can make it again. Somewhere. Maybe not Earth, but something like it." She smiled softly. "I'd like that." For a moment, the silence between them felt warm, comfortable, like home. But then, the ship's comms crackled. A voice broke through the quiet. "Help. This is Shuttle 9 Tango, civilian craft. We're under attack. Please. Anyone. We have children on board. ... Jackson's face hardened. He stood fast and rushed to the cockpit. The signal came from a nearby moon, just off the trade route. Nyla followed. "It could be a trap. It could be real," Jackson said. Jackson ... He looked at her. "You want to live in a better world, Nyla? Then we can't ignore calls like that." She stared at him for a long second, then nodded. "I'm with you." The ray lifted again, flying low and silent toward the source of the signal. The moon below was cold and cracked. Smoke rose in the distance. Fire flickered from the wreckage of a transport ship. As they approached, the signal repeated, "Please, ... help us, ... Jackson landed behind a ridge and powered down the engines. "No movement," he said. "But I don't like it." Nyla grabbed a scanner and stepped beside him. One life sign, maybe two. Weak, might be a child. Jackson grabbed his weapon and opened the ramp. Nyla followed, eyes scanning the shadows. They moved quickly, quietly. The crashed ship was torn open. Wires hung like vines. Blood stained the inside walls. Then they heard it. A cry, soft, weak. Jackson moved toward the sound and found a small girl hiding under a seat. Her skin was pale blue. Her arms shook. "It's okay," he said gently. "We're here to help." She reached out. Nyla lifted her carefully, but as soon as they turned back toward the exit, the trap sprung. 6 figures stepped out of the shadows, armed faces, hidden behind black helmets. One of them pointed a weapon, hand over the hybrid, and the girl. Jackson didn't blink. "She's just a kid. Not our concern," the man snapped. "Orders are clear." Nyla moved behind Jackson, shielding the girl with her body. The man raised his weapon, but Jackson was faster. He fired. One guard dropped. The others opened fire. Jackson ducked behind cover. Return shots echoed off the metal walls. Nyla handed the girl a small device. "Run. Hide in the ship. Lock the door." The girl nodded and vanished into the smoke. Nyla turned back and grabbed a fallen weapon. Jackson looked at her, surprised. "You sure you can use that?" "I remember everything they taught me." Together, they fought. Quick, smart, brutal. The ambush squad wasn't ready for a soldier with nothing left to lose, and a girl who no longer feared cages in minutes. It was over. Bodies on the ground, silence. Jackson stood there, breathing hard, blood on his shirt, burn marks on his coat. Nyla looked at him. "You okay?" He nodded. "Better than them." They returned to the ship. The girl was safe, scared, but unharmed. Jackson gave her water, food, a blanket. "Where's your family?" he asked. She looked down, sold. Nyla sat beside her and held her hand. "You're not alone anymore." The girl cried, quietly into her arms. Jackson watched them, heart aching. Every time, he thought the worst was behind them. Something new came, but he wasn't giving up. Not now. He sat beside Nyla. She looked at him. "You're wanted by slavers, tracked by bounty hunters, hunted by the Union." He smiled. "Yeah, I'm popular. And now, we have a child to protect. Then I guess we just became a family." She stared at him, stunned, but something in her heart changed. She leaned closer, and this time, when her lips brushed his cheek, he didn't pull away. The ravenfall drifted above a dying moon. Dark clouds covered the sky. Lightning split the clouds in violent flashes. The ground below was red, cracked, dry. A signal blinked on the screen, encrypted, unmarked, but familiar. Jackson stared at it, silent. Nyla stood beside him. "It's them," she said quietly. "The slavers." Jackson nodded. The signal had come from deep in the outer drift, a place no Union ships dared enter. No laws, no safety, just blood money. A major auction was happening there, bigger than the one where he found Nyla, and this time, it wasn't 7 in cages, it was hundreds. Jackson sat in the cargo bay, checking his gear. The stolen blaster, 3 charge packs, a combat knife. Not enough. NYL entered, her ears low, her face tense. "I know this place," she said. "They trained us here, broke us here. It's worse than you can imagine." He looked at her, listening. "I'm not afraid to go back," she said. "But I am afraid of what they'll do to you." Jackson smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm already broken. This is all I've got left. One more fight." Nyla stepped forward and placed something in his hand. A collar, rusted, bent, with dried blood on the inside. "My sister wore this," she said, "until they took her away." Jackson stared at it, jaw tight. "Then let's burn the whole place down." They landed 2 kilometers from the compound, hidden beneath a ridge. The auction site was massive, a fortress of steel and stone, guards on every tower, drones circling above. Inside, buyers walked freely, rich, cruel, laughing. A giant stage had been built in the center. A line of cages stretched across it, and in each one was a life, different species, different ages, all sold like objects. Nyla wore a stolen cloak, hood up, eyes sharped out. Jackson carried a crate, pretending to be a supplier. They moved through the outer wall checkpoint with fake passes and steady nerves. Inside the compound, Nyla froze. She saw the training yard, the shock poles, the cages where she had once slept in the cold, surrounded by screams. But she kept walking. They reached the rear building, the generator room. Jackson placed the crate down and opened it. Inside, charges timed, set to overload. The core. "If this blows," he said, "the whole power grid goes down. Doors, alarms, all of it." Nyla nodded. "You plant them. I'll find the cages." Nyla moved fast, heart pounding. She knew the paths. She knew where they kept the ones they feared most. And then she found them. Rows of cages, tiny, rusted. Inside them, girls like her. Some younger, some barely alive. Their eyes opened as she approached. One whispered her name. Nyla. It was her sister, smaller, thinner, bruised. Nyla dropped to her knees. I found you. Mai touched her hand weakly. I knew you'd come. Nyla reached for the lock, but before she could open it, a voice echoed behind her. Well, look who finally crawled back. Nyla turned. A man stepped forward, a slaver officer, the one who trained her, hurt her, broke her. He smiled with yellow teeth. I always said you'd come running back for the weak ones. Nyla stood tall. That was before. I'm not yours anymore. He laughed. Then die with them. He raised his weapon. A shot rang out. The man dropped. Jackson stood behind him, blaster smoking. She said no. The alarm lights began to flash. Outside, explosions lit the sky. The charges had gone off. Doors burst open. The power grid collapsed. Drones dropped from the sky. Panic. Screaming. Chaos. Jackson broke the cage locks, while Nyla helped the others stand. Go, he shouted. Follow the path to the ridge. Ships waiting there. Mai leaned on Nyla. They moved fast, the freed girls behind them. Guards ran in all directions. Some fought, some fled. Jackson stayed back to hold the path. He fired until his last charge pack was empty. Then he grabbed the knife. Close combat now. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Because he didn't. Nyla reached the ship first. She turned back, panting. Where's Jackson? One of the girls shook her head. He was still inside. Nyla's eyes burned. She grabbed a blaster and ran back into the smoke. She found him in the courtyard, surrounded, bleeding. He stood over a pile of broken men. He was still fighting. Nyla, get out, he shouted. She didn't listen. Together, they fought side by side. When it was over, only silence remained. She dropped her weapon. Jackson collapsed into her arms. Did we get them out? He asked. Yes, she whispered. All of them. He smiled. Then it was worth it. They flew away just as the compound exploded behind them. The freed girls sat quietly in the cargo hold. Safe. Free. Some cried. Some just stared. Mai curled beside Nyla. She held her tightly. Jackson lay on the medical bed, barely conscious. Nyla sat beside him, tears in her eyes. You gave everything, she whispered. He opened his eyes slightly. You were worth it. She kissed his forehead. Don't leave me. I'm right here, he said. And I'm not done yet. The Ravenfall floated just beyond the outer drift. Behind it, fire, smoke, the ruins of the largest slaver stronghold ever known. Inside the ship, silence, no alarms, no gunfire, just a soft, steady beep from the medical scanner. Jackson Cade lay on the bed, pale and still. His chest rose and fell, slow and shallow. Nyla sat beside him, her hand in his. Her eyes were red, but dry. She had cried too much already. Around them, the rescued girls rested. Some slept, some whispered. Her sister. Mai clung to her side, but Nyla's eyes never left Jackson. He had lost too much blood. Burns across his back. A broken rib pressing into his lung. The medbot had done all it could, but it wasn't enough. She leaned close to him. You can't die, she whispered. Not after everything. Not after saving us all. His eyes fluttered open just barely. Nyla. Here. He gave a weak smile. You're safe now. She shook her head. Not without you. Mai stood beside the bed now, holding something small. A glowing vial. Nyla looked at her sister. What's that? Our blood. It's not like human blood. We were changed, modified, engineered, to survive damage, Nyla asked. Mai nodded. To regenerate. Together, if we link our energy, we can share life. Give it to him. Nyla stared. You could die. Mai smiled gently. He's the reason I'm alive. All of us are. He's more than a hero, Nyla. He's the only one who saw us as people. The girls gathered around. Each one had suffered. Each one had been caged, sold, starved, but now they stood free. Because of one man. And they all nodded, one by one. They placed their hands together. The vial pulsed with soft light. Nyla looked at Jackson. Again, he was fading fast. Then she made her choice. She reached for the vial and pressed it to his lips. The glow spread into his body. Warm, bright. Jackson gasped. His chest arched, then collapsed. The scanner beeped flat. Nyla froze. No, no, please. The room was quiet, until one slow beep, then another, then a heartbeat. Jackson's chest moved again. His skin changed, color returning. His breathing grew stronger. His eyes opened. ... NYLA. Tears burst from her eyes. You idiot. She laughed through the sobs. You're not allowed to die. He smiled. You didn't let me. Later, the ship sailed quietly into the edge of known space. Jackson stood at the window, arm wrapped in bandages, his coat torn, but clean. Nyla joined him, leaning against his shoulder. You good? She asked. He nodded, still sore, but alive. He looked at her, and never more alive than now. She smiled. Her tail flicked gently as she spoke. Where do we go now? He tapped the screen. Union space has been silent. I think someone covered our tracks. Maybe that captain from before. She raised a brow. She believed in you, or she saw something worth protecting. He looked back at the girls now asleep in clean beds, with food in their bellies and blankets over their shoulders. They weren't prisoners. Anymore, they were a family. Nyla rested her head on his chest. Jackson Cade, the man who bought meat, and found love instead. He laughed softly. You saying you love me? She looked up. I already gave you part of my soul. Isn't that close enough? He leaned in, and this time, their lips met. Not as rescuer and rescued, not as soldier and survivor, but as something more, as two broken hearts that had found peace in each other. 3 months later, small planet, green, quiet, far from war, slavers, and scars. The Ravenfall sat parked beside a field of wildflowers. A new home. The girls helped plant crops, built shelters, sang songs from their memories. I played with 2 young orphans they had rescued. Her laughter echoed across the trees. Jackson stood on a hill, watching them all. His arm was healed. His soul, too. Nyla walked up behind him, holding a datapad. News from the drift, she said. He turned. What kind? She smiled. The last slave ship was shut down. A bounty went out for every trader caught with hybrids. Someone's cleaning up the galaxy. He smiled back. About time. She stepped closer. There's one more thing. She held out a ring. Small. Silver. Handmade. Jackson blinked. You're proposing to me. I saved your life. Twice. I get to choose how this story ends. He laughed. Then, let's make it a long one. She slipped the ring onto his finger, and they stood, hand in hand, watching the sun rise on their new world, a world born from pain, but rebuilt by love, by choice, by hope, by a single moment. When a soldier raised his hand and changed everything.